Today, we're going to talk about the science of how to catch up in life. And you may be one of these people that's kind of wondering, is it too late for me to start? Or you're thinking like, oh my God, I should have started a long time ago. There's no way I'll catch up. And you sort of recognize that people in life who start early are the ones that get ahead, right? Because it's like getting a 4.0 in high school, it lets you get into a good college. If you get into a good college, then you do well there, and then you can sort of get into a good grad school, or you can get a good job. And then if you're like working at a prestigious company, or you go to a fancy like medical school like Harvard or Yale, then you'll sort of get more advantages, and then you get better training. And sort of we kind of feel like if you miss the boat at some point, you're sort of screwed. If you're ready to take the next step on your mental health journey, check out Dr. K's Guide. It's an immersive resource that distills over 20 years of my experience laid out in a way that is tailored to your needs. So if you're ready to better understand your mind and take control of it, check out the link in the description below. So this is a video about how that is absolutely not true. And we're going to start by giving you evidence that you can absolutely catch up. And then chances are what's going to happen is you're not going to believe me, which is totally fine. Then what we're going to do is we're going to teach you the science of how to catch up. And we're going to sort of explore the science of growth and how human beings actually grow. We're going to lay it out for you really good. And at that point, you still may not believe me. And then we're going to get to the best part of the video, which is how the mind sabotages your ability to catch up. And I've worked with a ton of people as a psychiatrist who are behind in life. These are degen gamers. These are people like who are alcoholics. And they've fallen so far behind that they think that they can't catch up. But it turns out that the one thing that gets in the way more than anything else is themselves. So let's dive in. Let's start with sort of the science of catching up, okay? So we're going to start by looking at things called something called catch-up growth. So if you take infants between the ages of 6 months and 2 years, and they sort of miss out on nutrition, it turns out that they're kind of like small, right? So their growth is stunted. But if you start feeding them normally after 2 years, if they miss this critical period of growth, it turns out that they actually completely catch up to normal, and they can actually be a completely normal size. So we sort of know that biologically, catching up on growth is actually built into our genetic structure and our physiology. And if you sort of think about this, this makes evolutionary sense, right? Let's say that I'm like a monkey, and then there's a period of like drought. And so I sort of miss like 1 year of like eating really good. And so I'm smaller than all the other monkeys. But then evolutionarily, like as soon as I get food, it is an advantage for my body to learn how to catch up with lost time, right? So I want to still continue to grow so that I can fight and mate and all that kind of good stuff. So the moment that I get food, my body is actually going to be more optimized to absorb those nutrients and catch up. But if you're someone who's fallen behind, you're going to say something like, oh, but Dr. K, that may be true, but that's the body. Like the body is different and the mind is different, Dr. K. It doesn't work for the mind. Turns out that that is false. It absolutely works for the mind. So there's another area of research called attachment and behavioral catch-up, right? Which is kind of weird. It's called the ABCs. And what attachment and behavioral catch-up is about the formation of relationships. So what we also know is that there are critical periods in our development where we form relationships. If y'all are kind of familiar with attachment theory, it sort of helps us be secure in the world. If we grow up in a secure environment where we feel safe, it leads to our confidence. As we become confident, we can trust other human beings. As we can trust other human beings, we can connect with them. We can sort of apply for job interviews, and we can believe in ourselves and like all that other good crap. There's so much stuff that comes down to our core relationships. And so what people may think is that, okay, but like, what if I had a screwed up childhood? I'm behind. I don't know how to make friends. I don't believe in myself. Well, that's what's so cool about the research behind ABC, or attachment and behavioral catch up, is we actually know that there are ways that you can catch up in all of that stuff too. You can develop confidence in yourself. You can start to feel safe in the world, and you can develop like lasting and meaningful and impactful relationships instead of just being, a bundle of anxiety all day long. And so we actually have research on the outcomes of the ABCs, which work well. So we have good evidence that catch-up is actually baked into our genes, our physiology, and even our neurochemistry. That evolutionarily, the body and brain are designed to catch up after a period of things not working well or things not being ideal. So The next thing that we're going to get into is how. What do we know about the science of growth and the science of catch-up? We're going to start with a really simple analogy of like working out, okay? So let's say that I'm doing bench pressing, right? Because like, I'm going to be a Chad, Dr. K, like, let's get big, man. Let's get swole. So if we're going to do that, let's say I bench press and I do 10 reps. So what is our experience of like, what do we know about the science of like where the growth happens? The first 5 reps, I get very little growth. Next 3 reps, I get a little bit of growth. It's really during the last 2 reps when the strain is the highest that I actually get the most kind of growth and stress on the muscle fiber. And as I stress that muscle fiber for the last 2 reps, that's actually what's responsible for the most growth. So if you kind of think about even people who work out, let's kind of think about that for a second, right? So if there's someone who works out for 30 years and someone who works out for 3 years, is the person who works out for 30 years going to be necessarily more swole or in shape than the person who's been working out for 3 years? And the answer is absolutely not. What determines which one of those people is actually in better shape? It has to do with the way that they work out, right? So if someone does 8 reps for 30 years, they will not be as physically strong as someone who does 10 reps for 3 years, because it's in that last window of time that we actually see the most growth. And when I've worked with people who are behind, what we essentially optimize for is that last 10 to 20% of effort where the real growth happens. And the big problem with people who kind of struggle with catching up in life is that they'll kind of half-ass it, right? So you'll do like 5 reps, you'll do 6 reps, but you won't actually push yourself like completely to the limit. And there's a good reason for that. And that's because if you really look at the last 2 reps, those are the hardest to do. So what do we know about the science of growth and the science of catching up? That you need a small amount of help to make it successful. Now, this is where immediately half the people that I've worked with, or more than half of the people that I've worked with, have a reaction to that. They say, oh my God, Dr. K, you're saying I can't catch up without help. And what they automatically start doing, and you may be doing this as well, is they start thinking like, oh my God, I have fallen so far behind. I'm going to need so much help to catch up, right? It's not fair for someone, I'm 10 years behind. Is someone supposed to help me like redo those 10 years? The answer is absolutely not. You do not need help for the whole journey. You just need help for 10 to 20% of the journey. So let's go back to our working out analogy and think about this, right? So when I have a workout buddy, what does the workout buddy help me with? They don't help me with the first 5 reps. They don't help me necessarily with the next 3 reps. They help me usually with the last rep. And that's really all we need help for. So what we sort of know from people who are like trying to catch up in life, if you look at people who are like alcoholics, or you look at something like psychotherapy. So if I'm working with a degen gamer, how much of my help do they actually need? They don't need me to help them like 24 hours a day. They don't even need me to help them 16 hours a day. They don't even need me to help them every day. All they need is 1 hour of support, either coaching or psychotherapy, once a week. And that's that tiny amount that really leads to that like exponential growth. So if you're struggling to catch up in life, one of the things that you really need to do is get some help. But you don't need that help to help you with the whole journey. You can still do most of it on your own. It's in those little moments where you feel like you can't do what you need to do that I strongly encourage you to ask for help. So that can be something as simple as working with a coach or a psychotherapist for once a week. It can be finding a workout buddy to try to help you like work out a little bit. It can be recruiting a friend to help you like cook twice a week, right? Or teach you how to cook. You need actually a very small amount of effort or help to actually get you into that maximal growth phase. Okay, so that's the first thing to understand. Second thing you need to understand about the science of catching up is if you want to catch up, you've got to change your environment some. So what we sort of know about the science of addiction is when people have a particular friend group, those people, that friend group will lead to particular behaviors. Okay, so if I have friends that, I don't know, like drink all the time and I hang out with them, it'll make it easier for me to drink all the time. If I have friends who are potheads or gamers, and those are the people that I hang out with on Discord or IRL, that's the behavior that I'm going to end up engaging in. So generally speaking, if you fall behind in life, chances are the reason you fell behind is because you were with other people who are generally keeping you behind. So that can even be things like parents or siblings who are a little bit abusive or don't like support you in the way that you need. Or it can be a friend group of like fellow degenerates. And I was one, right? Like, so the thing that we love as degenerates is when like everyone else is degenerate with us. Because if everyone else is like out there living their life, then I'm going to feel really bad about myself. So I actually end up avoiding those people that make me feel bad about myself. And I join my tribe, which is the degenerates. And we're all going to be degenerates together. We're going to be anti-capitalism, anti-work, anti-the man, anti-everything. And we're going to sit here and we're going to smoke our pot and we're going to play our games and it's going to be great. I'm not saying that capitalism isn't bad in some ways, but what I'm encouraging you to think a little bit about the company you keep. And what we know from like the science of things like addiction recovery is that changing your company is really important. Now the question is, okay, how do I do that, Dr. K? How do I just change my company? So I'm going to teach y'all a couple of really simple techniques, okay? So here is how you expand your social circle. You go to a place where hopefully it's not the same people that you know. So you can go to like a networking event, you can go to a party, you can go to a meetup, you can go to like, you know, everything like an escape room, like you just find a group of people. It doesn't really matter. And you've got opportunities. So just go there. And then you're like, but I don't know anyone. So I'm going to teach y'all a really simple way to talk to people so that you can join people. It's really simple. So you can walk up to people like, let's say you're at a conference or party. You can say, hi. So look at them, make eye contact, smile. Okay, so you want to go like this. Actually, you don't want to go like that's fucking weird. If you're like, look, here I am. Don't do that. Don't do the hand motions, okay? Just look at them and then just smile. Like, so nod and make eye contact, and then they know you're coming over. This dodges the problem that a lot of people who struggle with social activity struggle with, which is like, how do you insert yourself into the conversation? You walk up to a crowd of people, they're just standing there, and then you're like just standing there awkwardly. You're not participating in anything. You're not like saying anything. You can't get a word in. So like, how do you avoid that? You make eye contact with someone in the group and you smile at them, you nod or something like that, and then you walk over. So this person now knows that you are coming in, okay? Next thing that you can do is you can just say, hi, my name is Alok. I'm looking to expand my social circle or get into new things. It's nice to meet you. That's it. Because a lot of times we wonder, okay, what's my excuse for like entering into a group of people? I need some kind of reason. Do I need to explain to them that I have no friends and I'm socially awkward? No, you can just say, hi, my name is Alok. I'm looking to learn more about whatever this is, or I'm looking to expand my social circle. It's a pleasure to meet you. And then you shake hands with everybody. Now you're a part of the conversation, okay? That's simple. So then the other thing that you can do is once you're a part of the conversation, you can just ask people open-ended questions about whatever they're talking about. But you want to ask like 1 to 2 questions and then like let other people ask questions as well. So you don't want to hammer them with question after question after question. But if people are talking about, I don't know, they're talking about their favorite place to go scuba diving, you can say, oh, that's really awesome. Can you help me understand like how you got into scuba diving? So you can just ask an open-ended question about whatever they're talking about, and then you'll be totally fine. Okay, so that's how to insert yourself into a group of people. So this is what we need to do. We need to change our social environment because the social environment will inform our behavior. The second thing that we need to do to catch up is to change our physical environment. So when I was trying to put my life together, I actually had 2 desks, and one of them I picked up on the street and I was poor and stuff. So I had 1 laptop. I didn't have space for 2 computers, but what I would do is I'd take the same laptop that I would game with. I'd log out of the laptop. I'd move over to my other desk and I would stick the laptop there and I'd log into my work login. Even that kind of cognitive shift or that environment shift will shape the way that your brain thinks. So if you can go to a library, if you can go to a coffee shop, if you can even just log out of your computer and switch to a different space, like taking your laptop to a couch, whatever you can do to shift your environment will shift your thinking, okay? So get a little bit of help. It's okay to ask for help, by the way. And y'all may be wondering like, hey, like, how do I ask for help? It depends on what you're trying to catch up with. So if you're trying to catch up with socializing, you can walk up to people and you can say, hey, I'm looking to expand my social circle, you know? Are y'all down to, I'd learn to love more. I'd love to learn more about what y'all are talking about. And then at the end of the conversation, you can be like, hey, it was like really cool hanging out with y'all. Are y'all down to hang out sometime? Just ask, right? The worst that they can say is no, and that's okay. So you want to expand your social circle. You need some amount of help, whether that's a psychiatrist, therapist, coach, friend, workout buddy, whatever. Get some kind of help. Change your social circle and change your environment. So now if you've gotten this far, you may be wondering a little bit about, okay, Dr. K, like this sounds great, but like I still don't think it'll work for me, right? You make it sound so easy There's no way, bruh, you don't understand, Dr. K. Like, I'm 15 years behind in life. There's no way that walking up to a group of people and telling them, hey, I want to expand my social circle is going to make up for all the crap that I'm behind on. You are absolutely correct. And this is where we get to how the mind sabotages you when you try to catch up. There are two things that sabotage us when we try to catch up. And this is the real reason that people don't catch up. It's because there's like tons of data, right? And like, I'm a psychiatrist that trained at Harvard and I was faculty there. I know what I'm talking about. But what is your mind telling you right now? It's not going to work for me. That's not how it works. We have evidence from physiology and nutrition. We have evidence about attachment theory and confidence. We even have like a nice plan that's been laid out. It's not everything, right? It won't get you 100% of the way there, but that's where to start. But what is your mind doing? Your mind is saying, no, it's not going to work. Or that won't work for this reason. So now we need to understand what really sabotages us when we need to catch up. Two things. The first thing that sabotages us are our emotions. So when you try to catch up in life, your mind will give you reasons to not catch up, right? So it'll say, don't go to that party. No one will like you. Or it won't be enough. These are really classics that I've worked with tons of people who are behind. It won't be enough. It won't be enough. And if you've been thinking that, pay attention, okay? It won't be enough. It's not going to work. It'll work for other people, which we'll get to. So now if we pay attention to what's happening in your mind, what is the direction of all of these thoughts? The direction of all of these thoughts is to not do it, okay? Now, this is what we have to understand about the mind. The mind may present you with things that seem logical. But generally speaking, if you're behind in life, chances are your emotions are controlling you. The biggest misunderstanding in our society today is that even if we're logical, our logical circuitry in the brain is literally controlled by our emotions. Our emotions have a controller where they're hitting buttons and they're controlling our logic. And this is why when someone is emotional, you can argue with them as much as you want to, but they will keep on coming up with reasons to logically disagree with you. You can see this in political arguments. You can see it with arguments with idiots on the internet. It doesn't matter how logical you are. They have plenty of logic to refute your logic. And this is the real problem where people get tripped up, is because when you have a logical reason to not do something, what do you try to fix? You try to fix that reason, right? You try to solve that problem. Okay, how can I go there and make it worthwhile? How can I be sure that this will work? Because it'll be a waste of time and then I'll be further behind, so I can't afford to do this. Sounding familiar? But what is the direction of all of these thoughts? The direction of all of these thoughts is to not get you to do something. And that's how you know that it's emotional in nature. Because if it's truly logical, any logical thought should end up, they shouldn't all end up in the same place. When our emotions control our thoughts, the direction of all of the thoughts leads to the same place. And that's how you know that you're not even thinking logically. So what do we do about this? First of all, just acknowledge that there's some emotion here and try to decompress that emotion as best as you can. You can do everything from meditation to psychotherapy to even noticing that, wow, no matter what I do, my mind is giving me reasons to not try. And once you notice that, what you'll sort of discover is that shame is behind this. And why does shame get people to stop doing stuff? So this is important to understand. Why does your mind even do this in the first place? So if we think about shame, if you are ashamed of yourself because you're behind, you don't believe in yourself, okay? If you don't believe in yourself, your mind calculates your attempts as failures. So like your mind is thinking, okay, we're pathetic, we're behind, you need to be ahead to get ahead in life, right? And we missed that boat, so we're screwed. So if we try, we are destined to fail. If we're destined to fail, then that hurts, right? Because we're going to put forth all this effort and we're not going to get anything from it. That sounds like a bad deal. Imagine I came up to you and I said, boy, do I have an opportunity for you. You can give me $10,000 and you're going to get shit all for it, right? I'm launching my new crypto coin and you can buy it today for 10 grand and you will get one HG Dr. K coin, and the HG Dr. K coin will give you nothing in return. Would you ever take that? No, of course not, right? I guess we're going to start our own cryptocurrency now. And this is what your mind is thinking. If you are ashamed of yourself and if you don't believe in yourself, it believes that all efforts will lead to failure. And if all efforts lead to failure, it is going to try to convince you to not buy that cryptocurrency. It is going to do everything within its power to protect you from that failure. which is precisely why it tries to sabotage your attempts to move forward. The second thing that the mind does, you have to watch out for I statements. So this is also something that's very important to understand. So if I'm behind in life, I start to form opinions of who I am. And if you're listening to this talk and you're saying, I can't do this, Dr. K, the people that you worked with are different. Or the reason they were able to catch up is because they worked with you, right? Your mind is going to generate all kinds of statements about how other people are different, but I can't do this. And it's also going to generate lots of logic, right? I didn't have those opportunities. I'm not as tall. I'm not as attractive. I'm not as wealthy. I'm not as smart. I'm not as disciplined. I'm not as lucky. I'm not all kinds of things. And so here's the really weird thing. When you start to believe something about yourself, it starts to shape what you choose to do or not do. So if I say something like, okay, I am socially anxious, I am socially awkward, that belief in myself is going to prevent me from engaging in whatever that activity is. So I'm not going to go to parties because I'm socially anxious. And so the beliefs that you have about yourself start to shape your actions and determine your future. And what always happens with the beliefs that you have about yourself is they become self-fulfilling prophecies. So if I believe I'm socially awkward, and I have all this evidence, by the way, Dr. K, it's not, the reason you're saying that is because like, bro, you don't know me. You don't know how socially awkward I am. I'm absolutely socially awkward. Okay, cool. So you're socially awkward. So then what? So you're not going to go to a party. And if you're not going to go to a party, then what? Your social skills will atrophy. And then what? And then you will become socially awkward. It's a vicious cycle in the wrong direction. The key thing to understand is these are all ego-based statements. They're statements of I am. And this may sound weird, but all that crap is BS because who you are is determined by your actions, right? The reason you're socially awkward is because you don't go to parties and then your social skills atrophy. What happens if you force yourself to go to a party? It's going to be painful, but then you will start to accumulate social skills. As you start to accumulate social skills, your identity of being socially awkward will start to decrease. And what I've seen with tons of people and myself as well is then your identity will change into I am someone who used to be socially awkward. And I'm telling you that as someone who used to be socially awkward. I was on the struggle bus with that a while ago, but now I've gotten better. And this is the really devastating thing about catching up is once we start making these ego-based statements and letting them control what we do, that is what we become. Because just think about it, right? So if I'm afraid of heights, prevents me from climbing a mountain versus I acknowledge, hey, I'm afraid of heights, but I'm not going to let it control me. I'm going to climb a mountain anyway. How do I feel once I've climbed the mountain? Am I still afraid of heights? Yeah, but I did it anyway. And once you start doing that, something revolutionary will happen. Who you are no longer dictates what you do. And as who you are and your emotions no longer dictate what you do, this is when you will start catching up. This is the key thing. What keeps people stuck for 15 years is that they sabotage their efforts because their sense of ego, identity, and emotions get in the way of them even making progress. That's the real problem. It's not that catching up is actually hard to do, or it may be hard, but we know from all these studies about growth and muscle development and stuff like that, that you can absolutely catch up. I've done it. I started med school at the age of 28, and here I am today. I started, late in life. And you can absolutely do it. But what really gets in the way is the way that your mind tells you it's a waste of time, it's hopeless, it's not enough, this is not who you are. Since you are this way, you cannot do this thing. But the beautiful thing is that once you crack that, once you really realize that, start doing the things that are in the opposite direction of what your mind tells you. Notice that all of the logic in my mind is leading to one conclusion. My mind is actually trying to convince you. Why is your mind using logic? It's trying to convince you. It recognizes that this may not be true, but if it convinces you, it protects you from pain, but leaves you stuck. So if you want to catch up in life, understand this principle of growth and that the last 10 to 20% of effort is actually where most of the growth happens. Try to get a little bit of help. You don't need a ton of help. And by the way, now that we've sort of understood these emotions and this ego, we can also see that even the way that you react to me telling you you need help, ooh, you see those reactions? The reactions are like, no, it's too much. No one's going to be able to help me. It won't work. You see that? Get a little bit of help, change your environment, change your social circle. And most importantly, pay attention to the way that your mind sabotages you. And if you can do these things, you will absolutely catch up.